What is up? Good morning and welcome to Club Fantasy's Monday's Hangxiety. This is our weekly recap show where we take a look at all of Sunday's action, a little bit of Thursday's action, and we tell you when it is time to freak out and when it is time to chill the fuck out. The whole reason this show exists. I am your host, Ryan Weisse. With me, as always, the happiest Philadelphia Eagle fan in the land, Josh Hudson. How you feeling today, buddy? Besides
11-1, baby. I'm on cloud nine. I'm so high on cloud nine. I had to change my backdrop, and it's nice and bright back here.
Yeah. Do you see it?
Really curious. I'm house sitting this weekend, or really
ruined it, Josh.
Week. So
as my camera turns off.
See, look at that. Whatever.
Well, I was going to say you ruined it. I was about to say Josh is actually in the same room he's always in. He's just so much happier today that it's so bright.
The frown turned upside down.
No, it's great. And obviously we're going to get into all of Week 13's action, but just another big win out of the Eagles. And you know what? I know you're going to talk about it, but I love that we have somebody here who just comes in for A.J. Brown slander and the vulture that is Jalen Hurts. But this week in the big revenge game that it seems like everybody forgot about the A.J. Brown revenge game. And
I didn't.
I know you didn't. And it's a big narrative. So we'll get to that in a second. Let me quickly run down a Monday and a little bit of Thursday's action. We are going to be doing an injury segment this week, so you're not going to hear me talk about any of the injuries here, maybe just a little bit of narrative. The Bills get by the Patriots 24-10 on Thursday. Packers beat the Bears 28-19. I love what's going on with the Bears, Josh, and we talk about this every third week. It seems like that they keep losing to improve their draft pick, but Justin Fields keeps looking like a superstar. So,
to be fair, he looked efficient with his passes. In reality, he only incompleted 3 of them. 2 of them just were to the other team.
Yeah, exactly.
And he did make some good plays, but again, you're looking at Justin Fields and you're saying the sky's the limit for this.
Exactly.
It really is. He needs so much help on this offense because Montgomery just is floating through at this point. Like you would think with a running quarterback that his efficiency would be better, and it's just not there because he doesn't have the speed that some of these other running backs have. But I mean, Equanimous St. Brown, decent game, 3 catches, 70 plus yards or whatever it was.
A N'Keal Harry sighting.
N'Keal Harry just blew right by Jair Alexander. And you're like, I thought this guy was an all-pro. What the? And all-pro, I'm referring to Alexander here, not Harry.
Certainly not N'Keal Harry.
Cole Kmet being the number 1 option, which is what a lot of people were kind of hoping he would be. Yeah. Obviously, this is in lieu of the Darnell Mooney injury, but things are there's room here for this offense to improve, but they need pieces. And sitting with the number 2 overall pick, which is where they are currently right now, with a bye week ahead of them, they're having trouble closing games, and that's a talent deficiency. And part of it, honestly, is a first-year head coach as well. But there's a lot that can make moves here, and you could trade back to a team that needs to trade up for a quarterback, pick up some extra draft capital. The Howie Roseman special, right? Just waiting for it. And this Bears team is set up to do some phenomenal things if they make the right picks and the right moves.
Absolutely. I'm loving it. Like I said, keep losing and keep Justin Fields healthy. And we dealt with shoulder injury, but that's something.
Well, he slid a couple times yesterday.
Exactly. He's learning.
He's got it. Okay.
I like it. And it's funny. We were watching yesterday and Marlia brought up, she was watching Justin Fields play. And she's like,
that's how you guys spent your anniversary? Kudos.
Yes, watching the Bears. No, we were watching Red Zone. But yes,
that's only 15 years. We've done this before.
Exactly. We went out for a nice dinner that night. But she kind of talked about how he moves around and keeps the play. And my wife, who does not watch football except from a very high level, sees the work in Justin Fields' game that she doesn't like it. She's like, God, he takes forever to throw the football. And I was like, well, that is the knock on Justin Fields, but with his legs, he's able to do that. And then she got to see the 55-yard run and all that kind of stuff.
And Jay brings up a good point. The Bears have $100 million in cap space too. The big thing here is you have to spend it wisely. Look at the Jags last year. A lot of people, they harped on them for throwing money the way that they were, but those pieces they fit within what they're trying to do. Yes, the Jags have struggled a little bit this year. And again, a lot of that's just working out the kinks. You've got a first-year head coach. You've got a team learning a new offense. There's going to be hiccups. But you can see the strides in this team.
Well, you're going to have to build a new defense because you obviously disassembled your defense. So that's where a lot of that money is going to end up. But you're going to need to find offensive linemen who want to pass block run block rather, and that's what offensive linemen tend to want to do. So I think it's going to work out well. Steelers sneak by the Atlanta Falcons. Relatively boring game, 19-16. Steelers 4-1 with TJ Watt this season. It's an interesting stat.
The Minka Fitzpatrick interception that wasn't a touchdown to end that game. That hurt my soul. That crushed me.
Hurt me as well. Thankfully, I won my matchup, but me and Marlia watched that one live as well. And I was like, if I lose fantasy matchups where I started the Steelers defense by fewer than 6 points this week, I am going to be livid. Another close one.
I was thinking more in terms of the couple IDP leagues that I have.
I didn't invest in Fitzpatrick, unfortunately. I wish I had. Another close one for the Vikings, 27-22 over the Jets. A lot of good things to like for the Jets in this one, but the Vikings keep winning close games, undefeated in close games this season, I thought I read. Lions blow out Jacksonville. I am an ass, and I don't remember if I said it on our Wednesday show. I definitely said it. I do a little podcast for my home league. I said that Jacksonville was going to blow out the Lions. That was the other way around.
Jared Goff at home. Money.
Yeah,
I tried to tell y'all in the notes on the Wednesday show.
You really did.
But your hatred of Jared Goff sometimes clouds your judgment here.
Yep.
That out there.
Eagles keep it rolling, 35-10 over Tennessee. More on that later. Browns defense, and I want to be very clear, the Browns defense beat the Houston Texans 27-14, 3 defensive touchdowns. I think I read most since 1987 for defensive touchdowns in a singular game. One of them was a special teams touchdown by DPJ. A fucking tie. The Giants and the Washington Commanders, of course.
They're equally as bad or equally as good. Flip a coin.
For someone who roots for the Eagles and likes to see the Dallas Cowboys win as well. I like that team. This was just a throwback to the NFC least, if you will, like equally as bad as what I'm going with here. But they weren't the worst game of the week because Baltimore played Denver, and the Denver fucking Broncos continue to just do what they do this season. 10-9, no offensive touchdowns for the Denver Broncos. Yet again, another game that if they had just scored 18 points, they'd be the best team in the AFC.
$250 million for Russell Wilson to score 0 touchdowns. My favorite stat. I have two favorite stats on this. Okay. Yeah. One, Carson Wentz hasn't played since week 6. He has more passing touchdowns than Russell Wilson.
Wow.
Right now, Russell Wilson is trending towards having fewer touchdown passes than he has bathrooms in his house.
I saw that one. Someone does like a weekly update. And I think Joe actually brought that up on our Wednesday show as well. So the 49ers stand up the Miami Dolphins 33-17. We're going to talk about Jimmy Garoppolo here in a minute. Brock Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant, no longer irrelevant, comes in, gets a win over an important team to beat. Just a great game for the 49ers if you're a 49ers fan. Same division, Seattle survives the Los Angeles Rams. The Rams, kudos to the Rams, because over their last 2 weeks, I've called for blowouts, and they've played incredibly well in both of those games. But Seattle survived their own injuries, 27-23 in that game. The Raiders, I think this was a shocking game. Beat the Chargers 27-20.
The Raiders are that offense. They're figuring it out. They're realizing, you know what? We've got Josh Jacobs. We have Devontae Adams. Put the fucking football in their hands.
And Jacobs playing through injuries still just continues to just look like a fantastic running back.
Dude is going to get paid.
And he deserves it.
I don't care what running backs are coming out in this draft.
Yeah. The Bengals win probably the best game of the night, 27-24 over the Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes continues to let Joe Burrow be his kryptonite. It was not a great game there. And then the Cowboys. Pretty boring game. Everyone knows I'm an old guy. I fall asleep at halftime. Pretty boring game up to halftime. And then apparently in the fourth quarter.
See, I thought it was competitive.
Yeah.
The first half, like it was back and forth. I'm like, oh, the Colts maybe got something going. And
I just meant there was nothing like exciting that happened. It was pretty by the books, if you will. Like
fair enough.
I wasn't excited by it. I go to bed. I wake up and I look at the score. 54-19. What? 33-0. I think it was the third highest fourth quarter score ever in NFL history for the Dallas Cowboys.
Quick.
But that's enough. That's enough talking about the Cowboys and then that Texas team, Josh. It's up with the Birds. Talk to us about your Philadelphia.
Yes, sir. 11-1, baby. Love to see it. This was the first game that I've seen them play where literally all 3 phases of the game, I was like, okay, we can do this. Because for me, the 2 biggest weaknesses with this team of late have been the run defense, which they've seemingly figured out, adding in Linval Joseph, adding in Ndamukong Suh. We got Jordan Davis back last week. We held Derrick Henry to 30 yards rushing. That's what you want to do to dominate, right? If you can hold good running backs under 50 yards, under 60 yards, whatever it is, and make a team that's not known to pass the football to beat you, they're not going to beat you. And I will say, it helped the Eagles, and I don't want this to come out incorrectly, but when they lost Treylon Burks, that was the change.
You're not victory lapping an injury. You're not being an asshole about it. It just changed the script of the game.
So. And I understand that the hit looked really dirty. It's just one of those things that in the quick instances of this, like you're throwing your shoulder, and it just the way that he came down, the helmets collided. It looked a lot more dirtier than I think was intended. Yeah. But however you want to translate it, if you think it was dirty, I'm not going to argue with it. It is what it is. But unfortunately, Burks got knocked out. I hope he's okay. I hope he comes back strong. Kudos to him for even hanging on to that football.
That's because,
damn. Like, I would have dropped that.
Yeah. Well, and I've thought about this often is you don't always see that where they get knocked out and hold on to the ball. Yeah. But in these concussions, they tense up, and he tensed up on the ball, which doesn't always fall that way. So, I mean, hell of a play.
But, like, the biggest thing for me, and I'm totally going to call this guy out, too, because it was the most egregious tweet I've ever seen. Michael Salfino, this guy drives me up a fucking wall. He was talking about how, Jalen Hurts ran for 157 yards last week. Oh, is he even a quarterback? Bitch, hold this fucking beer. Had less than, what do you have, like 9 yards rushing and 380 passing this week? Bitch, shut up. Shut up with this shit. I'm sorry. Jalen Hurts right now is the MVP of this league. He's 100%. Doing everything and anything possible to make this team win. If he needs to run the football, he'll run it. If he needs to sit back and throw the football, he's going to do it. And right now, defenses are not stopping him. Plain and simple. Like, I know the narrative of up to this point was Patrick Mahomes this, Patrick Mahomes that. And I get it. You can make that case because right now he's doing everything that he had been doing with Tyreek Hill. And now he's doing it without it. So that tells you that Tyreek was not making Mahomes. And that's awesome. Great. Cool. You've got a case. But you know what? It was put up or shut up against the Bengals, who right now, they're your fucking daddy. Because the Bengals own Mahomes right now. Like, they've lost the last 3, and it's all been by 3 points or less.
There was a graphic out at probably NBC or one of the big ones that the Chiefs haven't won in Cincinnati since 1985.
Yeah, like it's rough. So, like, at this point right now, Jalen Hurts is the league MVP. Obviously, things will, there's still weeks left to play.
A lot of football left.
And I'm telling you what, as great as Dallas has been playing, as great as Philly's been playing, fireworks galore on Christmas Eve night when Philly plays Dallas for week 16, because that right there, I'm not going to say could define the NFC East, because if Philly keeps winning, it may not matter, because right now they have a 2.5 game lead. And that half game is the fact that Philly won the earlier meeting that Dak missed. But yeah, like I'm all on board on this team. AJ Brown, obviously off the charts, 8 catches, 119 yards, 2 touchdowns. I brought it up in, I think it was the Start Sit Different Day chat when the questions about Devonta Smith. Devonta Smith eats up zone coverage, 5 catches, 102 yards, and a touchdown.
Well, and it's nice, and we've talked about this so many times on this show, and you've hit the nail on the head as someone who watches way more of the Eagles game than just someone like me who cares about it for fantasy. 2 of these guys, it sounded like I said Tua, 2 of these guys can always go off. Well, with the loss of Dallas Goedert, the wide receivers have stepped up, and we saw Kes Watkins have some good games, and we're going to talk about his injury a little bit, but we've seen this. But you made me look into it. Jalen Hurts has 7 games with multiple passing touchdowns and 8 games with over 200 passing yards. Shut the fuck up! Like,
the dude is a quarterback, and he's playing some of the best quarterback in the NFL right now.
You would have thought we would have got over this dumb shit with Lamar Jackson, but apparently there are just ignorant assholes out there. So I don't know, Michael Salfino, and if you want to come on the show and defend yourself,
he's right with the Athletic. He works with Mojo now.
Gotcha.
Well, that's all he is.
I was literally gonna say you're an asshat, so it is what it is. I'm gonna get to some of these comments. Obviously, the very first one I need to bring up. Great historical fact by Gator here is every time Philly's been in the Super Bowl, started 10-1. So history is certainly on their side here. these are going to be a little mismatched because of stuff we've talked about. Steelers defense next week against Lamar if Lamar's out. It's sounding like Lamar's out. I want to be very clear. I know he's going in for an MRI. They're saying it's not season ending. When you hear the words not season ending, that means he's not playing next week.
Yeah, right. They're going to rest him 1 week. And really, this is a game that they should be able to rest him. Like you mentioned the Steelers are 4-1 with TJ Watt. But let's be honest, too. They're not playing great football. They're playing okay football. Their defense is carrying them right now. Baltimore's defense is also playing really well. Kenny Pickett has limited the mistakes. Right now, he's just playing as a game manager. If Tyler Huntley, who we've seen play really well,
you're going to hear a lot of Tyler Huntley hype later on in the show. If he can come out and, run the football, throw the football where he needs to, because the secondary, not great. Like Levi Wallace is starting to step it up a little bit. Obviously, we know Minkah Fitzpatrick, how well he plays. They're going to get pressure on him, but Huntley's mobility can keep this offense alive. And keep an eye on TJ Watt, because if you didn't pay a lot of attention to the Steelers game, they brought up multiple times he's playing with a rib protector for like the first time in his career, and he went off the field often. I'll be interested to look at the snap counts later today. He was on and off the field more often than I thought he would be. So that's an interesting one. Michael, I'm always going to give you the hype, man. Great Sunday for your fantasy teams. You're a day one for us here, so I'm glad you're doing well in fantasy, especially at least yesterday. I found this one pretty interesting because this is something our Joel Worth has been talking about for a while now. Is it time for the Bears to ditch David Montgomery and just roll with Herbert next year? Again, we've talked about this a lot of times. Backup running backs are supposed to be more efficient than starting running backs. They're very clearly going to do that. Montgomery's in a walk year, right? Like he's gone.
Yeah, I believe this is year 4 because him, Sanders, and Jacobs all came out this year.
Yeah, so Montgomery's in a walk year. So it's going to be Herbert next year, but they're going to it's likely not Treston Ebner. They're going to need to bring somebody in to fire.
Well, yeah, and even then, like they've been playing Darrington Evans quite a bit too. Like he had
a really nice run yesterday as well.
Yeah.
So.
To your point on TJ Watt, 47 snaps yesterday, tied for the most among linebackers on the team.
Interesting. Okay, because it seemed like he was off the field quite a bit. So I mean, maybe that's just by design, but he was playing well when he played. I really like this comment. Adams still the man. I saw a tweet yesterday, and again, I don't remember who it was, but they said, "Are we sure Justin Jefferson is better than Devontae Adams?"
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest. 2 overall wide receiver 1 weeks in the last 3 or 4 weeks, I believe. Like Adams is straight cooking right now. Like,
yeah. What you hit the nail on the head is that they've realized what their offense is. It's Josh Jacobs. It's Devontae Adams. It's interesting that
it has to be. Hunter Renfro's on IR. Darren Waller's on IR. Like, I mean, they're throwing the ball to Mac Hollins.
Yeah.
Like, you remember in the offseason when I was talking about, like, the 1 year that I felt that what this team could be was, I think it was, like, the 2014 Patriots with, like, Brandon LaFell and Julian Edelman and Gronk. Or maybe it was like 2016 Patriots.
Yeah, I think it was 16,
it was going to be those 3 guys, right? So I'm like, okay, you've got Waller, you've got Renfro, you've got Adams. Like, that's where your targets are going to go. And everything else will just kind of trickle down. Well, Waller and Renfro have been on IR for the past, 2-3 weeks, whatever it is. They've been inefficient when they have played. So right now, all the targets are getting funneled to Mac Hollins, Devontae Adams, and even a little bit towards Josh Jacobs.
Yeah. Well, and
that's where this team's going.
That's where I was going to go with it is maybe they were trying to spread the ball too much. Like Waller and Renfro are good for what they were when the Bengals needed that, or excuse me, the Raiders needed them, but Adams is heads and tails better than them. And so maybe this is the evolution of what this offense needs to be. Maybe we shouldn't be counting Josh Jacobs' paycheck elsewhere so quickly because they may just end up keeping him there, though I know you have your Damian Harris theory. So
and again, it's just, McDaniels right now is running his offense the way that he has to run it, not the way that he wants to run it. And I think that, you always see kudos to McDaniels for actually flipping the script.
Yeah.
And, realizing that, hey, I need to go through and, get my best players the football because I can't really force it to anybody else because they suck. And that's why we're losing games. But, the longer a head coach is in place, like look at Chip Kelly when he took over the Eagles. Like he just fit players into his system. He got the best players the ball, but then he started jettisoning players. He moved on from LaShawn McCoy to bring in DeMarco Murray. He moved on from Deshaun Jackson, basically put Jeremy Maclin in the role and then started, making the draft picks and doing the things that he needed to do to reshape the team in his image. Didn't work out for him. Probably may not work out for Josh McDaniels, but that's the way that these coaches are ultimately going to play.
Yeah. We're going to talk a little bit more about this later. Obviously, I want to give a shout out to Gator here with get your best players the ball. And we've kind of seen this. I'm going to talk about this guy in my cut list. The Miami Dolphins. They've stopped giving the ball to Mike Gesicki. They're forcing it to their wide receivers. And like you're just seeing this
really well.
The Dallas Cowboys keeping Tony Pollard way more involved, feeding CeeDee Lamb just a ton of targets. We're seeing this more and more from NFL teams. And don't worry, we are going to have a discussion about Travis Kelce. It was very confusing. Yes, 1 target at halftime. They obviously started using him a little bit more in the second half. And then we see a rare Travis Kelce fumble where he was just absolutely mugged for that football. So,
yeah.
Not the best Travis Kelce game. Nothing I would say panic about at all, but not the best Travis Kelce game whatsoever.
I think I'm going to bring this up really quick, only because we're on the subject. Ryan, I know you used to watch the Eagles a lot with Donovan McNabb at quarterback.
Yeah.
Do you remember when they lost the NFC Championship game to the Rams and how the greatest show on turf was completely spread out? The very next draft, the Eagles went out and spent their first 3 picks on corners.
Yeah.
Lito
the kid
Shepherd,
from Florida.
Sheldon Brown. Yep. Like they went all in on the secondary. They said, we're going to do what we can to stop this team because this is how we're going to make
this
it to
one
the Super
thing.
Bowl. Yeah. And that's how we're going to get to the Super Bowl, right? We know we've talked about this already today. The Bengals have the Chiefs number.
Yep.
Guess what the Bengals did this offseason in the draft?
Found people.
They spent like 3 of their first picks or 2 of their first 3 picks
on corners and
on safeties.
Yep.
To stop Travis Kelce. And you know what? 2 of the last 3 games that they've played against Kelce, he's had 95 yards.
Yep.
What did he have this week? Not much.
It's working. They did what they were supposed to. It was I don't remember the names of their players, but the Britt Taylor, I heard his name called out on one of the plays. The not Dex Milne. Is it Dex? No, Dex. I can't think of the guys' names that they draft. Daxton Hill, I think it is. Anyway, they did really well with their draft picks, and they played very well in this situation.
Well,
and that's
let's not forget, they also still have Jesse Bates, too, back there.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the best in the game, absolutely, for at least this season. I'm guessing this is actual breaking news. I don't have access to my breaking news.
I put it in. I put it in under the next segment that came out right before the show. Baker was expected to be released. I guess they've already officially made it happen. The experiment is over. Obviously, we know there's at least one very quarterback needy team in San Francisco. I'm fairly certain that Christian McCaffrey is pleading to John Lynch, do not make this happen.
Don't let it happen. Well, that'll be interesting. That's actually very interesting that you say that, because I would have never made that connection as quick as you did. Because if they make a play for him, then maybe Baker's not the problem, because I personally hate the offensive coordinator and everything that's going on in Carolina.
True. I mean, Ben McAdoo, come on. They never stood a chance.
I've been a Baker apologist for far too long, and I do recognize that he is trash at this point. I'm very interested to see what happens if he ends up sitting out the rest of this season. But yeah, it's a lot. All right, Josh, let's talk some injuries. You made the list. I added to the list. Let's go ahead and just dive into this a little bit. I'll let you get us started.
All right, a couple of scares, obviously. Running back Aaron Jones left with a shin injury. He did end up coming back. We saw how good of a game A.J. Dillon had. I'm fully convinced that A.J. Dillon is just the December bruiser, and he's been trolling us fantasy managers for literally 3 months now just to get dropped on waivers to then create fab bidding wars when nobody has fab left. Tennessee quarterback Ryan Tannehill rolled up on his ankle. He did eventually come back into the game and then sat back down when he realized we don't have a chance to beat the Eagles this week.
Yeah.
Miami wide receiver Jalen Waddle left early in the game with a leg injury. He did end up coming back. I believe it was in the 4th quarter. By that point, the 49ers had just kind of already made their statement. Tua also in that game rolled up on his ankle. They're saying that he should be fine for week 14. As mentioned earlier, Treylon Burks left with a likely concussion, was his only catch of the game. In the same game, Philly wide receiver Quez Watkins left with a shoulder injury. The reason I bring this up, he is the team's wide receiver 3, obviously without Dallas Goedert. He's seeing a lot more usage, and you're seeing it in these games. It's believed to be an AC joint sprain per ESPN's Jeremy Fowler. MRI should happen later Monday to confirm. Baltimore quarterback Lamar Jackson, as we mentioned, he left in the 1st quarter with a knee injury. Not officially done for the season. Jim Harbaugh is calling it days and weeks, whatever the fuck that means.
Whenever you hear weeks, not good.
Yeah, right. Denver wide receiver Cortland Sutton left with a hamstring injury. So if you're wondering why you saw that big goose egg next to his name, that's why. Seattle running back Ken Walker left with an ankle injury. They're
Also,
calling
Russell
this
Wilson sucks.
Well, yeah,
that's part of it.
Well, Jerry Jeudy did come back this game. So
I know.
I did get a couple questions in reference to that. Well, Jeudy back. Should I sit Sutton? Sometimes, yeah. Kind of wish I'd taken my own advice on that one. I might have actually had a chance to win one match.
Yeah.
Seattle running back Ken Walker left with an ankle injury. They're calling it a jammed ankle. I've never heard this term in reference to an ankle.
Been watching football,
but it sounds like it hurts like a bitch.
I've been watching football since the early 90s and have never heard that as an injury terminology ever. So
they're obviously going to run some tests later on Monday for exact diagnosis, but Pete Carroll seems optimistic that it's not anything too serious. But there was at one point in the game where Seattle was literally down to Tony Jones Jr. as their lone running back. I believe Travis Homer missed this game. DJ Dallas left with an injury. He eventually ended up coming back. But this could have been catastrophic for Seattle. And that really is why this game, I think, with the Rams was so close this week.
Yep. I mean, they won, and that you got to win these games. So,
yeah. As we've kind of talked about and alluded to earlier, Jimmy Garoppolo cut it off. It was classified as a broken foot. It is season ending. Yep. Brock Purdy season, baby. Let's go. Mr. Irrelevant is now Mr. Relevant. Las Vegas tight end Foster Moreau left the game with a concussion. Since he lost Hayden Hurst to a calf injury, he did not return. Two players that missed week 13. Matt Stafford obviously was still in concussion protocol. They're now calling it a spinal contusion injury, I believe.
Yeah, that's exactly. Josh, I was reading your next comment. I read an injury report thing, and they just said Michael Carter, so we can skip that one altogether.
Fair enough. But Jets running back Michael Carter did miss this week's game with an ankle injury, and obviously we know what happened with Zonovan. Bam! I love that nickname. It's fantastic.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But back to Stafford, he's likely done for the season. There's literally no reason for him to come back, which likely means Cooper Kupp is probably not coming back either.
Safe to drop Cooper Kupp.
I'm not saying that it's safe to drop him. You can still keep him on IR, but in the event that you absolutely need that spot, then yeah, I think it's safe to move on from there. And as previously brought up, Baker Mayfield, I believe now it is officially has been released from the Carolina Panthers. Any team that claims him off waivers is left with the remaining 1.3+ million guaranteed on his contract for this season.
I feel like the Texans should get him just to troll the Browns. I don't even know if it's a troll at this point, but what an interesting situation for the former first pick of the draft, a draft that included Buffalo Bills Josh Allen.
And you know what? The sad part is that I still firmly believe that Baker Mayfield was the right pick for Cleveland at that time, because they needed an identity. And if there was anything that you know about Baker, especially from his college days, he had that. He had some swagger. He had an attitude, and it really started to change the culture in Cleveland. It really did.
I tell this story often from Northeast Ohio, and listening to the big ESPN Cleveland Browns radio station at the time. It was down to Baker and Sam Darnold. And whenever Josh Allen got tied to the Browns, because there was about a 1 week period where it was going to be Josh Allen, Browns fans were livid. We cannot go get this guy. He's inaccurate. He's going to throw picks. He's trash. We do not want Josh Allen. How would we pass on Baker or Sam Darnold? And it's just so funny to me.
And honestly, I get it. I wasn't a big Josh Allen believer when he came out at all. But and people that are like, oh, well, they could have had Josh Allen. And do you really think we would have the same Josh Allen? What kind of quarterback development in the history of Cleveland Browns football leads you to believe that they could have made Josh Allen into the Josh Allen that we see today? The reason that Josh Allen is the Josh Allen we see today is because Buffalo came in with a plan, and they were going to develop this kid. And they developed this kid, plain and simple, because he was literally a ball of clay that needed molding. Plain and simple.
Yeah. Before we get into the head scratchers, I 100% agree with this comment. I think I actually said this on air 2 weeks ago. I don't think there's a way Aaron Donald plays past this season. If he was flirting with retirement after a Super Bowl win, you're done after the season you're having right now. Like there's not going to be much motivation. And we've talked about this. We've talked about this with the Rams and the Saints. They're going to be in purgatory for a little bit. They're in draft hell and cap hell. And that's a hard 2 levels of hell to get out of. So
yeah, as of right now, the Rams would have the number 4 overall pick, but because of the Matt Stafford trade, the Detroit Lions will once again have
the Detroit Lions. This is going to sound weird, but we've talked about this with your Philly for so long. The Detroit Lions are in a Philly light situation where they're getting things going at the right time. They're obviously not 11-1 and Super Bowl contenders.
Well,
but they're getting things going, and now they have this high draft capital to go with it. So
well, and this is what I find really interesting with Detroit, because I feel like right now they're making a lot of really good moves, and now it's going to become, what do you do with all of this, right? I'm not saying that Jared Goff is the long-term answer at quarterback for this team. I'm not going that far. I don't think Goff is great. He's an average to slightly above average NFL quarterback. But you're building the pieces around him. You currently have a top 5 draft pick. After the top 2 guys, Stroud and Young, a lot of question marks at the quarterback position. Maybe continue to build the defense, add another offensive line piece, or potentially trade the pick. Maybe a team wants to come up to get that quarterback. Now you can pull that Howie Roseman deal, get a first-round pick in 2024, set yourself up to where you have 3 first-round picks next year. Maybe 3. Hang on. I'm trying to think if they have the Rams pick next year, if they just had it the year before and then this year.
I think it's just
regardless.
The year before. Yeah.
Okay.
So.
Still, that's 2 first-round draft picks next year, right? Now you're putting yourself in a position to build the best team possible around Jared Goff and see what you have in him, because it's essentially what Philly did this year. They said, all right, Hurts, this is your team. We're going to build around you. We're going to make it as impossible as possible to fail. If you fail, guess what? We have 2 first-round draft picks next year. One of them, if you fail, is going to be a high pick.
Yeah, we're replacing.
And hey, guess what? Now you got another one because the Saints suck too.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you can use that draft capital to move up to get the quarterback that you want if need be. The Lions are setting themselves up to be in that exact situation in the event that it plays out that way.
Well, and they've hit on every level. They have a great offensive lineman from their early picks. They now have arguably one of the best young defensive linemen in football. And Jeff Okudah has played his ass off at points.
Yeah, he's played a lot better since he came back.
Yeah. And so it's interesting. They need to improve the rest of their defensive secondary. They don't have a great linebacker really to speak of. So their defense still needs some work. And Dan Campbell.
Don't slander the name of Rodrigo now.
Well, and that's fair. And they also
Hard Knocks darling. He's come on a little bit more.
He has, and he's not a good linebacker, but Alex Anzalone is involved in like every damn tackle that they have on this team. So like there's a lot going on there. You just have to see how they're going to develop it, because you can still work on the offensive line. They don't have to address Goff. You're absolutely right about that. You guys have been great today, so we're just going to keep it going. I don't think we've even gotten through half of the show sheet at this point. But Josh, everything I've heard, Marshawn Lattimore is playing tonight. So.
Correct. Yeah, all the reports are leaning towards that. Again, we know the history. Lattimore on Evans. It's been back and forth. I believe they were both ejected, or was it just Evans that was ejected?
No, both ejected last time. So yep.
Okay. So there's some bad blood here. These guys don't like each other, and Evans tends to not play well going against Lattimore. Lattimore does really well against bigger corners, or bigger wide receivers, because he is a bigger corner. I'm not high on Evans this week as a result, but at the same time, a guy that hasn't played in 6-7 weeks, probably going to be a little rusty, and there's some potential there for Evans to be able to do something.
I was going to say, there's rust. Here's the thing. Can you put your emotions to the side? Typically, these guys only get ejected once a season. So they got ejected last time. Hopefully, because both these teams need this win. We've talked.
And Brady got into Evans' face about the whole thing the last time.
He really did.
Look, I appreciate you standing up for me, but we need you on the football field.
I was just going to say, Brady can't afford to lose Mike Evans. Obviously, they're leaning on Chris Godwin, but they can't afford it. What I will say, full PPR, the fact that you have Rachaad White, 9 targets last week, 9 catches last week. Saints very good against the running back, but Brady's going to lean on people who are working for him, and I think Rachaad White's going to help you along.
I was going to say my biggest worry with Rachaad White is Leonard Fournette should be back this week. and he did miss last week, I believe.
I know. I'm telling you, I said this to you guys before the London game with the injury. They were already talking about making a move. I don't know how involved Leonard Fournette's going to be fully healthy or not. I think they want to lean on Rachaad White. And so we'll see how it goes. Josh, we got our biggest head scratchers of the week, the hangover. I'm just going to let you go in. You have some really good notes here. I tacked on some things at the end, but go in, man.
So I'll start with the easy one. George Pickens, Pittsburgh against the Falcons. The Falcons, cake matchup. They yield a lot of points to wide receivers.
Yeah.
Pickens with 1 catch, 2 yards. What the fuck, bro? What the actual fuck? Yeah. Look, I get it. It was the Deontay Johnson game. The team came out and said, we have to get Deontay Johnson more involved in this offense. And they tried. 11 targets for Deontay Johnson, only 5 catches. I know drops, like we talk about it all the time, like they can be an issue in real life football. They're really not an issue for fantasy football.
Yeah.
I think this year for Deontay Johnson, it is becoming one and the same because I think his confidence is just shot at this point. And it's, you know, I don't know if part of it is just trying to get used to the rookie quarterback. If it's, you know, you spend a high draft pick on George Pickens and now you're starting to feel threatened, even though you got your contract in the offseason, but that contract isn't, you know, the upper echelon that, you know, some of these other guys were getting. And it was only a 2-year contract versus a 5-year contract. Like, I mean, let's be honest. He signed for essentially half of what Tyreek Hill got in Miami.
Yeah.
You know, and obviously there's a big talent difference there. I'm not denying that side of it, but you know, when you're going through and doing the things that Deontay Johnson has done in this league, feel like you should get a little something out of it. And I think really he took that contract just for the security side of things, not because, you know, he wanted to go into this season potentially with a rookie quarterback, see his value sink, and then not get anything close to what he actually signed for. So,
well, that's what
good target game. I think Pickens will be fine because the Steelers' schedule against, you know, for fantasy defenses and wide receivers, it looks really good.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's just a blip. But yeah, definitely a little disconcerting with Pickens' performance this week.
Not that you would ever need to be hyped up on Deontay Johnson, but Deontay Johnson could be absolutely fantastic in fantasy football next year because his draft stock is going to plummet. and I think he's going to be fine as Kenny Pickett improves. So
that's the hope anyway. That's the hope.
On
my next one.
I was just going
to write through all of them, or
well, I was just going to throw it. Steelers have the 8th best schedule for fantasy wide receivers in their remaining games. So
there you go.
There.
The next one I'm going to hit on before I get into my finale for this segment because you know I gave the guy barely as much credit last week.
Yeah.
NFL tight ends, like literally all of them. My God, you fucking suck. Like seriously, 7 tight ends this week. 7, only 7 topped 10 fantasy points. That's it. And not one of them was Travis Kelce or Mark Andrews. Why aren't NFL offenses utilizing this position? I don't get it. It makes 0 sense to me. They are mismatches in offenses. They are absolute mismatches when you have a guy that's 6'5", 260 that runs a 4.7 40.
Yeah.
Or 4.6 or the hell, 4.4 in some instances, Kyle Pitts. Like, yeah. Offenses don't want to use them, and it baffles me. It absolutely baffles me.
Josh, how about this? You probably have it in front of you, but if you don't, it'll be a fun little trivia. So 7 tight ends with 10 fantasy points. How many tight ends caught a touchdown this week?
Total or in the top 10? Or
total.
Above 10?
Total.
3 or 4, I think.
4, and 2 of them, it was their only catch, so they still didn't make that 10 fantasy point mark.
Yeah, I know one was Michael Pruitt.
Yep, and then the other was
and then
Hayward for Pittsburgh.
Yeah,
so, yep.
And then I knew Fant caught one, and I knew Ingram caught one.
Evan Ingram, my stream of the week, bailing me out because Jimmy Garoppolo was my stream of the week. Oops.
That hurt.
Yeah, not a whole lot.
Your jinx is alive and well. Which, by the way, I told you Goff was going to do well. Who was your number 2 in your stream of the week?
My number 2's. It's a new thing.
And Cleveland Browns defense was your number 2
defense. I want to be fair. I'm taking a complete victory lap on Cleveland Browns defense. Everywhere I wrote that Seattle was my stream of the week, I said start the Browns. Don't start Seattle. So, Maybe that's the thing. Maybe I call someone my stream of the week and then write an entire paragraph why you should start number 2. But anyway, Josh, go in on the Cleveland.
And my last point, because we're staying with the Browns, I gave Kevin Stefanski too much credit last week. I gave him too much credit. I said, you know what? You're going to change things around. Watson coming back. You're going to throw the football more. I kind of expected that they would go a little bit more conservative this week because Watson coming back. They still ran the ball 38 times to 22 pass attempts. So pretty Stefanski-esque ratio, right? Your best running back did not even handle 50% of your team's rushing attempts. What kind of egregious fucking coaching is that? Unbelievable. Unreal to me. And on the flip side of that fucking game, you have your ball inside the 5-yard line and you're not giving it to Dameon Pierce? Dude, Lovie Smith, what the fuck are you doing, bro?
Yeah.
This game was right for both of these running backs to go absolutely bonkers. And I think they combined for just shy of 21 points. It makes zero sense to me at all.
And then Kareem Hunt had a decent game if you still consider him a decent running back. But yeah, just weird game. I was out here making an ass of myself predicting a 200-yard Nick Chubb game. Oops.
And you know what? His yards per carry was decent enough to be able to do it too.
If he could have just broke one big run off and, they kept feeding him the ball instead of, So when Red Zone, I watch all my football on Red Zone, as you guys know. When they cut to the Browns game for the safety, I was like, oh, this better be a 99-yard Nick Chubb touchdown. And I was like, nope. Instead it was a negative one.
Tackled in the end zone. Son of a bitch.
So, yeah, that was rough. Just to tag on to that, the people who started Deshaun Watson in fantasy football this week.
Did you not watch him in preseason? Seriously.
And then the Texans don't give up points to the quarterback because you can run the football. Stop buying into this emotional bullshit. I'm not going to sit here and tell you Deshaun Watson is washed or trash or anything like that. He ran the ball 7 times. That's great for fantasy. We know this. He didn't do a lot with it this week. He will later. This was never the game. And I saw Geno Smith or Deshaun Watson on message boards more times than I can count. That should have never been a question. I saw people going, I guess I'll start Justin Fields. That should have never been a question. I don't care even with the injury. You play Justin Fields, you play Geno Smith with the way they're playing this season. I can't figure out the Jacksonville Jaguars. I've been trying to will them into being an improving football team for weeks.
I think they are an improving football team. The outcome of this game is different if Trevor Lawrence doesn't get hurt. I firmly believe that. They score more than 14 points.
Yeah,
they probably
came back in
lose.
And ran the ball, but...
Yeah, they probably at that point they're losing, and you're like, look, I mean, he's healthy enough to come back into the game, but why do we want to keep putting him in harm's way?
Yeah,
that's why. And look, Detroit's run defense has looked better. They're giving up less than 70 yards on the ground over their last 6 games.
And I think that's the hard part to come to grips with, is because overall picture Detroit has such a bad defense, but they are really playing so much better lately, and so. I don't know. I really wanted Jacksonville to run away.
They're winning games against teams they should beat. And we said this, Detroit they play a lot better at home.
Yeah.
They really do. The Jags aren't on that level yet. They're not going to go to a team or go to a city where a team is playing really well at home and beat them. They're not that good yet.
So I guess this is a me problem because I thought
it's a you problem, dumbass.
Yeah. Well, no, you're not wrong.
Read the stats.
I said this once last year that expectations are a you problem. I expected the Jags to be better, and they weren't. And then I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this, but the fucking Broncos, man, you've already hit it on the head. Quarter of a billy. That's it. The fucking Broncos. Head scratch. I don't understand what's going on there. Josh, before we get into our next segment, tell our adoring fans about Manscaped.
Yeah, we got to pay some bills, man. Look, Hangxiety presented by Manscaped. The best in men's below-the-waist grooming, Manscaped offers precision-engineered tools for your family jewels. Manscaped recently launched the ultimate men's hygiene package, the Performance Package. And with the holidays right around the corner, this is the men's grooming all-you-can-do package. It is absolutely fantastic. It comes with the Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer, the Weed Whacker ear and nose hair trimmer, the Crop Preserver groin deodorant, the Crop Reviver toner, performance boxer briefs, and a travel bag to hold all your goodies. Now, look, I've used this stuff. Ryan, I know you've used it. Joe,
Yeah.
our co-host on Wednesday, no pun intended, he's used it. We all love it. It's fantastic. Just the ear and nose hair trimmer for me has been a godsend. Like, it does wonders for me. Like, I love it because, I'm old and hairy and the hair just gets darker as you age. But, everything else, like, it's great. I run around a lot at my job. So, the boxer briefs where they don't ride up, it's great. The groin deodorant is fantastic. Like, I don't sweat near as much, which, sorry, getting a little graphic here, but hey, it's awesome. It's great. It's fantastic. Go to manscaped.com, use the promo code Club Fantasy and save 20% on your entire purchase and get free shipping. That's manscaped.com. Use promo code Club Fantasy for 20% off and free shipping.
Fair warning to all, we're running over today, but I'm going to start the next segment with another listener comment. He's up 30, but he's going against Kamara and Suck Up. He thinks he's screwed. I think you're in an excellent spot. I don't think Kamara comes anywhere near a 15-point game. Now, I will say with the way kickers have been playing in the NFL recently, Suck Up might kick 10 field goals tonight and beat you. But I think you're probably in really good shape here.
Yeah, Kamara's been on the downswing, George. I wouldn't be expecting too much out of him anyway. I mean, Suck Up definitely has some opportunity because the Tampa offenses look kind of meh. And as poor as the Saints have played, their defense is at least trying to put up a fight. So there's room there for you to win.
I'm not worried. I think you win by 9 points. I think they combine for 21. I got your back on this one. Next segment, shot of espresso. We got that the juice is flowing from great performances, and I'm going to start with this one with the Dallas Cowboys. We spend a lot of time on this show talking about the Philadelphia Eagles, but Josh, you've been giving the Cowboys credit lately. So Dallas Cowboys using both starting running backs. It's working out very, very well for fantasy. We're seeing Michael Gallup get involved.
2 touchdowns this week. He's taking this OBJ love personally, and I fucking love it.
And so that's what I was going to say is, and then the very first Dallas article I read today is tying them to OBJ again. And I'm like, I don't know that that's the move. Noah Brown didn't do a lot this week, but Noah Brown is fitting into this offense where they need him to. They're using their tight ends the way they should be. Dalton Schultz with another 6-target game, not a big fantasy game, but for the Dallas Cowboys in general, just seeing them play well on an offense that Josh gives me a hard time every preseason that I over project the Dallas fucking offense. And he's 100% right because I project them for 17 of these.
They're doing their best to live up to it this season. The second half when Dak came back from that thumb injury, they're rolling right now. If we get this offense for a full 17 games.
That's what I'm saying. I got to stop projecting this for 17 games. But yes, so for me, seeing the Dallas Cowboys play as well as they've played, I've loved it. Back-to-back great games for Garrett Wilson. I'm really starting to fall in love with the Jets. I've been making a joke for 2 weeks now that I think I'm becoming a Jets fan living in New York. Seeing this kid play, 15 targets. Yes, please. And then my last one, another big target game. If you've watched our show for any period of time, me and my boy Joe Zolo, big Keenan Allen guys. We fell off the bandwagon a little bit this year when he just kept staying hurt, not coming out and playing. 14 targets and finds the end zones. Always a great day for me when 13 finds the end zone for the Los Angeles Chargers.
I also want to point out with Garrett Wilson, he led the league this past week in total air yards as well.
Yep.
Absolutely great.
Mike White. I mean, we're seeing the de-evolution of Baker Mayfield, and Zach Wilson might be following that exact same career trajectory.
Hey, I love it. I'm gonna kind of go quick on a couple of these.
Okay.
Christian Watson, look, all this man's doing is scoring touchdowns. He had not 1 but 2 more this week, and one of them was a rushing touchdown. He's high efficiency, which it's always more difficult to kind of project that out.
Yeah,
but look, eat it up. This guy is going to be a league winner right now. He's a top 5 100%. Wide receiver since over the last 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And they're getting him involved in this offense. They're moving the chains with Dillon and getting Lazard involved. And they're saying, Watson, we're getting you the ball and you're going to score. And that's exactly what he's doing.
Still available in 15% of fantasy leagues.
Unfucking believable. My next one, because this just brought an absolute smile to my face. I loved it. The DK Metcalf versus Jalen Ramsey back and forth. So our good friend, Laura Oakman, was on the sidelines of this game. And I'm watching this game, and there's one play where you see Ramsey and Metcalf line up across from each other, and you just know they're jawing back and forth. And then Metcalf goes in motion, And Ramsey just throws his arms up like, what? You scared? What? And Metcalf's like, yo, come on, let's go. You want this? Bring it. Of course, Ramsey stays put because it's not the defense, because the Rams are playing way more zone coverage. But the cherry on top for me, because I can't fucking stand Jalen Ramsey because he thinks he's Deion Sanders and can yap and yap and yap. The final touchdown drive that Seattle scores, guess who catches it? DK Metcalf. Guess who was draped all over him and couldn't swat the ball away? Jalen fucking Ramsey. Loved every single second of it. I want more rivalries like this. This is fantastic. And DK Metcalf has made the Rams his bitch since he came into this league, and I love every second of it.
It's awesome.
Fucking love it. Love it. My final one, I'm going to stick with the Rams. Cam Akers, because Ryan, didn't you say to drop Cam Akers last week?
I do want to point out he was still hella inefficient, and the Rams suck.
Oh, no, absolutely he was. But honestly, like, I just wanted to give you shit about it because, look, we all take our L's. It's part of doing what we do. But none of us saw this. Because the Rams they're not going to be in games, so they're not going to run the football
dysfunctional.
Yeah. I mean, and when you look at this team, he's still not getting targets. He's getting the rushing attempts. Yep. Why was he running the football? Well, because Seattle couldn't pull away from this game because they lost their own running back.
Exactly.
And that's why you saw Cam Akers in this game. His saving grace was that he fell in the end zone twice. Like, great, it's cool, awesome. But you're going to have a lot of fantasy managers that are now going to jump on this bandwagon that, oh, Cam Akers is the workhorse that we thought he would be. Stop.
Please stop.
It was great. It was fantastic. But this is a prelude to chill the fuck out.
And like I said, the inefficiency is what worries me, because that's what I keep harping on with these Achilles injuries. I'm not an injury expert by any stretch, but with the Cam Akers love, I dug into it. These were 4.6 yard per carry players who never hit 4 yards again. And that's what we're seeing with Cam Akers right now.
I mean, you're seeing it now with Deonta Foreman, but it's not, 5-7 years later?
Obviously, for Gator here, it's going to come down to scoring. He was down 88 last night, but Dak and Pollard went ahead and lined that up for him. Now he's down 16 with White and White. If it's full PPR, I like you with Rashad White on his own. That's Devin White for those that don't play IDP. I think you're probably in really good shape with those two players and only down 16 points. So.
Yeah. I don't know what your IDP settings are, but I'm assuming it's probably pretty tackle heavy, and that's kind of where Devin White shines. So
exactly.
Yeah, I think you should be okay.
And Andy Dalton is prone to turnovers and sacks. So I like every bit of it for you, to be perfectly
honest.
honest.
Devin White, they use him to rush the passer too.
Exactly. Morning mimosas, Josh. You got that tingly feeling, and I love every single player you pick. I actually had James Cook on my list and saw you already had him and backed it off because your notes.
Yeah, and that's who I'll start with, because that was the early game on Thursday. 14 carries in this. Yes, I understand some of it was in mop-up time, but the 6 catches for 41 yards, like, they used him really in a feature role. And I want to see if I can find, because I know I retweeted it. Hang on. It was from our good buddy, Marvin Eloquent. He was pulling out the big stats on James Cook. And this was, I believe, the first time since week 2 that Cook had a higher usage value than Singletary. And a lot of those opportunities in that game against Tennessee were in garbage time. But this was the first time that Cook was used as an RB1 over Devin Singletary in a competitive matchup. Marvin does a lot with analytics and expected fantasy points. Their expected fantasy points in this game, Cook was at 16.2, Singletary was at 9.6. That's the type of opportunity right now that James Cook got. And again, this is what you kind of see with rookies. Like, we talked a little bit with like Dameon Pierce and Ken Walker, maybe potentially hitting that rookie wall. Well, for James Cook, that rookie wall was the early part of the season. The fumble in the first game, the lack of touches, but and then they moved on from Zach Moss. They bring in Nyheim Hines. That, to me, bringing in Nyheim Hines was more of a special teams thing, because that's kind of where they're using Hines at this point. They're not really using him much as the receiver out of the backfield the way that the Colts were. They're saying, hey, James Cook, it's your time. Let's go. And you know what? He's going, and it's working for him.
I almost put Nyheim Hines on my cut list, but I thought it kind of went without saying. He's only rostered 35, 40% of leagues, but James Cook is only rostered in 25% of leagues. This is a guy. how many times do we have to beat the drum? You have to be patient with rookies, and it's working its way into fruition at this point.
Absolutely. My next pick, and I touched on it a little bit earlier, AJ Dillon.
Yeah.
Look, the guy's a 250-pound monster. These guys have already been playing 12, 13 weeks. Their bodies are tired.
Yeah.
AJ Dillon said, "Let's go, bitch. We still got another month." And he's just bulldozing people. He scored his first touchdown since week 1. Second time in the last 3 weeks that he's top 60 yards. Yes, we know that Aaron Jones is a little banged up in this game. They're still going to use Aaron Jones more in the passing game than AJ Dillon, but Dillon has, he's shown that he can catch the football as well. He can run these little wheel routes and the arrows and things like that. But Dillon is going to be the banger for this offense.
Yeah.
And he's been running the football a lot better over the last 3 weeks. And it's only going to get colder. And what happens when 250-pound monsters bang into you in the cold weather? It hurts like a motherfucker.
I'll only pour a little bit of water on this. They have a really bad running back schedule for the rest of the season. It's ranked 22nd versus running backs for the rest of the season, and it's great against wide receivers. But you're right about the weather, and especially the weather in Green Bay. Plus, you said something really interesting earlier in the show that A.J. Dillon is just trolling to make himself a waiver thing. He is still available now in 33% of leagues on his poor play lately. So
he was dropped in quite a few of mine. Not going to lie. And I'm kind of kicking myself because I started Kyron Williams over him this week in one league. And
yeah,
I'm smart. And then my last one, because again, kind of on the theme of rookies, Drake London, 6 for 95. We talked about he was going to get that bigger piece of the target share. Guess what? 12 targets with Kyle Pitts out. And you know what that equated to? 50% target share. Which tells you they only threw the ball 24 times, but I don't care. 12 targets! And
I was literally going to say, I love that you keep hitting target share for Kyle Pitts and Drake London this season. That's been my favorite.
But you know what? Here's the thing. Pitts is out for the year. He's done. Surgery on his knee. He's not coming back. Drake London right now is all they have in this passing game.
Yeah.
And, they get a bye this coming week in week 14, so he's not really going to help you. But 15, 16, 17, if you're in the playoffs, he is a good bench stash. If he happens to be out there because somebody may have dropped him because the Falcons offense sucks and he's not seeing the targets and he's not getting the production. Maybe he'll start finding the end zone. I don't know. But again, you got to love the target share. And, he caught half the targets, which, when Marcus Mariota is your quarterback, it's about as good as you're going to get. Let's be honest.
With mine, they all ended up being dynasty focused just because it's what I felt like this week, and it was completely inadvertent, but seeing Zonovan Knight run makes me so happy for Breece Hall next year because this team is playing well towards this whole running offense like we've seen from San Francisco and we're seeing from Miami. And Breece Hall already looked good, not great. He had his great moments, but Zonovan Knight has looked very, very good, and I'm not worried that I think he was a UDFA. I'm not worried he's going to take a lot of time from Breece Hall next year. So I'm just very excited for Breece Hall next year. The Lions offense in general, and this is actually a lot for this season, 2 great running backs, a solid wide receiver core, and Jared Goff playing well, at least at home. You're not going to get a hold of DeAndre Swift, Jamal Williams, or Amon-Ra St. Brown right now. But DJ Chark and Jamison Williams have a role to fill, and I think it's a role they're going to fill together on a team that doesn't have a really great tight end. So I think you're going to see a lot of 3 wide receiver sets, and you're going to see a lot of sets where all 5 of these guys are on the field at the same time. I'm very interested because DJ Chark had a really good game even with all of this that's been going on. And then you have the Jamison Williams who did absolutely nothing. In redraft, he could be out there. You could actually see him dropped because a lot of teams probably stashed him on their IR, and then he goes out and does nothing. You could see him available. So Jamison Williams is a guy I'm trying to acquire as the season moves on. And Josh, I know he pops up on your chill the fuck out. And then I have been beating the drum for Tyler Huntley for so long. And he did some things last year that I have him on a bunch of my dynasty teams already, because in dynasty, one thing you need to pay attention to is contracts. Tyler Huntley is in Baltimore right now on that restricted rookie deal right now and in the last year of his deal. And then we all know about the Lamar Jackson. Tyler Huntley is going to fight for a starting job somewhere next year. He's either going to be gifted the starting job in Baltimore if Lamar takes the bag and goes elsewhere, or he's going to go elsewhere and he's going to be competing for a starting job next year. I'd love to see him somewhere like Carolina, maybe. There's a lot that you could see really good for Tyler Huntley. But the few things, while he doesn't throw a lot of touchdowns, 6 yards per rush last year completing over 60% of his passes last season, and then 80% of his passes in this game where he wasn't even expected to play. I think we're going to see a lot of really good things for the next 2 to 3 weeks out of Tyler Huntley. Lamar Jackson is going to play their final game against Cincinnati. No matter what happens, he will be back for that game because it's such an important game. But I'm really interested to see what happens with Tyler Huntley moving forward. He's a guy that even in a single QB league, because of his rushing ability, I'm probably putting a waiver claim in for Tyler Huntley this week.
The big, I think with Huntley, I would not be shocked if he got like a Marcus Mariota type contract where it's like a 2-year, like, $15 million deal. And then you have like the incentives for this. And, it's a bridge quarterback, right? I mean, I'm just going to throw this out. Take it for what you will. It's probably asinine at this point. What about San Francisco? Like, if your plan truly is to go forward with Trey Lance, what does Trey Lance do that Tyler Huntley doesn't? Yeah. Like that's kind of how you really need to approach this situation, because Jimmy Garoppolo doesn't run the football.
Nope.
Trey Lance runs the football. If Tyler Huntley is Trey Lance's backup, you don't have to adjust your offense. And this is what Baltimore has done.
I was going to say, we talked about this with Baltimore.
Jackson.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, absolutely great point there. The theme of the show, as always, has been chill the fuck out. Either there's going to be players who are way better yesterday than they actually are, or way worse than they actually are. Josh, take it away.
Austin Eckler, kind of a big dud. I think actually he still finished as a top 15 running back, if I'm not mistaken. Let me double check that really quick. I think he only had like 30 yards rushing. It wasn't anything great. 35 yards, excuse me, on 10 carries. Still involved in the passing game, 5 for 67. We know that's always going to be there. The big thing, too, was the fumble, and he finished his RB 18 through Sunday. So, obviously with the Monday night game still to play, you've got White, Fournette, Kamara. Maybe he still makes it as a top 20 back, but for a guy that's been the RB1 all season, and then seeing Josh Jacobs go for 21 points,
yeah,
it's easy to get worried, especially because you probably needed this performance to maybe get you over that hump in the playoffs, like I did when I just traded for him. Kind of let me down, but at the end of the day, it's still Austin Eckler. Things are going to be fine. Not too worried about it. You kind of alluded to this. Jameson Williams, love this kid. Super excited for him. There was a report by, I think it was Jay Glazer, before the game, that the Lions were looking to potentially use Jameson Williams as a gunner on special teams. And I could not help but fucking laugh.
Yeah.
I'm like, look, I understand Dan Campbell is one of these like, rah-rah kind of like old school head coaches that, he wants everybody to be able to, every facet of the game.
Yeah.
You don't trade up to go get Jameson Williams to put him as a fucking gunner on special teams, especially when it's his first game back off an ACL injury. Stop with this bullshit.
One thing I'll throw out, I'm in a industry dynasty league. This wasn't the trade in the league, but I'm talking with folks in the industry. If you're in a dynasty league that still has trade, you might want to send some offers out to the Jameson Williams. There was an offer sent out for Rondale Moore and a 2 for Jameson Williams. I want the Jameson Williams side of that all day. And here's the thing. That's not the worst offer, and the guy was even considering a 3. But what I'm getting at is the Jameson Williams manager was considering it, and we talked him out of it. We're like, no, you want to hold on to the Jameson Williams manager in your league might be willing to move Jameson Williams for less than what you think after one bad game. If you still have a trade deadline available, maybe to use it to take a look at Jameson Williams. So.
Yeah, I mean, he only played 8 snaps. I mean, they essentially had their full array of wide receivers. Amon-Ra 66 snaps. DJ Shark, who, presumably is likely to lose the job to Jameson Williams as Williams gets more ramped up, 64 snaps. Josh Reynolds, 60 snaps. So, like, they're playing with all their guys, right? And that's what you want to see for Jared Goff, as if you're a Lions fan, if you're a Lions front office or a Lions coach, because you want to see what he brings to the table, because we know Amon-Ra is going to get targeted. And he's completing close to 90% of his passes while targeting Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Yeah.
Like, it's some asinine, crazy number like that. Like, Amon-Ra is that dude, and getting a healthy Jameson Williams on the outside is only going to make things better for Amon-Ra St. Brown in that offense. And then finally, the Dolphins offense. Look, they went into this game without their starting left tackle and their starting right tackle. They did not stand a chance against this pass rush.
Yep.
Like, we know that Tua gets rid of the ball quickly. You go into this game without your 2 starting tackles and lose one of your premium wide receiver weapons in the first half of that game. You did not stand a chance. And
it explains
before the second half
start. Exactly.
Yeah, they were still keeping up with San Francisco at that point. But, it just good pass rushes will wear you down. It's what happened. So I'm not freaking out just yet. And I'm certainly not freaking out about the fact that Jeff Wilson only had 1 rush for 3 yards. But the alarming factor was Raheem Mostert played over 60% of the snaps.
That's
nothing. The flip-flop. Yeah.
Did nothing, though.
Didn't really. Yeah. I mean, which again, I wasn't very high on this San Francisco or the Dolphins running backs going into this game anyway. San Francisco's defense has been playing lights out. Their run defense is great. Their pass rush is great. Their secondary has been great. It's all there. It's great. I'm not too worried about it. But again, the thing with Jeff Wilson, though, we need to monitor these snaps with Raheem Mostert because, again,
100%.
Wilson comes in, essentially takes over the job.
And now
maybe Mostert's getting it back. I mean, is this the matchup? Look, they get the Chargers this coming week. The Chargers can't stop the fucking run. I'm not panicking. If Wilson can't do it against the Chargers, then yes, I'm going to panic.
I think my favorite part about this is this could easily be us talking about the San Francisco 49ers in 2020. And now we're talking about the Miami Dolphins in 2022 with the exact same players with these weird snap counts and everything. So we're monitoring Jeff Wilson and Raheem Mostert on a completely different team 2 seasons later. I just love things like that. Josh, before we jump into mine, would we drop Brandon Cooks for Darius Slayton? I absolutely would. I debated putting Brandon Cooks on my drop list this week. For this move, I make this move. I'm not saying Brandon Cooks is a full out drop, but for this move, Darius.
He's a full out drop.
So yeah. Okay, there you go.
I mean, at this point, like, what in that Houston Texans offense makes you believe that even when Cooks comes back healthy, he's going to be even a startable flex at this point?
Yeah.
There's nothing.
Exactly.
There's absolutely nothing. Like, I would much rather.
Nico Collins finds the end zone this week. Loved every bit of that.
Garbage time. God bless garbage time. But yeah, like this is just like this has been the thorn in Brandon Cook's side this season. Like, we all felt that he was quarterback proof. Well, apparently he's not incompetent proof because this offense is flat out that incompetent. Like, it's just awful. It's not working. You're safe to move on from Brandon Cooks. I think at this point, this team wants to see what they have with their young guys, and they're going to get, Nico Collins more involved. If only John Mechie were playing and not out this season. Prayers up,
100%
and everything like that.
Kick cancer's ass. Get back out here, buddy.
All about it. But like, they need to see what they have in Nico. Do they have he was a 3rd round draft pick. Like, that's decent draft capital for a wide receiver.
Yeah.
They have 2 first round picks. They have Cleveland's pick this year and presumably the number 1 overall pick. You're going to go get a quarterback. What's the best thing to do with a quarterback? Either draft a left tackle to protect him or get a premium weapon for him to throw to and grow with.
Yep.
So you have an opportunity to where, you have your left tackle in Laramie Tunzel, which,
we've
debate all you want whether he's good or not. And I don't think he's all that great, but they're paying him a shit ton of money. So it is what it is. Brandon Cooks is on the older side, was presumably going to get traded at the deadline, couldn't get something worked out, likely to probably move on from him this season. You get Mechie back in the slot, hopefully. You get, is Nico, I don't know that he's the number 1, but can he be a solid number 2? Go get a number 1 guy because you're going to be in a position to do that in the middle of the draft.
I feel like Nico's a DJ Chark type where he's going to be a nice outside complement to, but they need to go get a real weapon because
but he's not near as fast as DJ Chark.
No, I just mean like the type where he's just that outside.
No,
he's just good.
They need to turn him into a possession receiver. He needs 100%. To be the guy that is moving the chains at 10 yards, 6-7 yards, that kind of thing. The occasional 15, 20 yarder here and there, but they need a guy that can flat out burn on the outside. And right now they don't have that.
They don't. Absolutely. For me, obviously we shouldn't have to tell you to chill out on Travis Kelce. He's the tight end.
He didn't score 10 points. He's a dud. Fuck him.
He's the tight end 1 by a mile. And Josh, you could not, we hit on this earlier in the show, and Josh, you got every point I wanted to make. When you look at the Bengals secondary, that secondary is built to stop Travis Kelce. Von Bell, Jesse Bates, Cam Taylor-Britt was one of the rookies. The other rookie was Dax Hill. I was messing up on his name earlier. They built this defense to stop Travis Kelce. They were not going to mess around and let Travis Kelce beat them. It has worked. It worked this week. Travis Kelce is going to rebound. Obviously, the touchdowns have come in weird bunches this year, but the targets are going to be there. The targets even came in the second half of this game. I'm not largely concerned about Travis Kelce. Please don't go out there and if your favorite analyst says to go get Ty Johnson because of the Jets running back situation, it was a super weird game. The man had 1 carry for 3 yards and he's the RB 25 on the week because of 6 targets. I think it was 7 targets. He had 9 targets coming into this game. Do not freak out don't box score watch with Ty Johnson. Michael Carter should be back at some point this season. He's going to take those pass catching downs back. And then honestly, don't freak out about these Falcon players because change, it's a coming. Literally, their coach said things need to change. I think that change after the bye week is going to be Desmond Ridder. I was very vocal.
And then think about it this way too. If Tampa wins their next 2 games, if they beat the Saints tonight, and I don't remember who they play in week 14, but if they win those 2 games, Atlanta's now 2 full games behind Tampa. Like, that's when you need to make a change.
Yep.
Like, you need to see what you have in Desmond Ridder. Like, when we were going through and doing our projections in the offseason, I think I had Ridder at like 8 or 9 starts, and then it was the flip-flop for Mariota. Like, I felt that they were probably going to be, pretty interchangeable and pretty even. But, Atlanta has stayed moderately competitive. But again, it's been because, and we've talked about this on numerous occasions, Tampa has not run away with this division the way that they should have.
Exactly.
So now you're at a point where if Tampa goes 2 games up with essentially 4 games to play, your offense right now isn't really working. If you want to catch Tampa 2 games down, you need to make that change.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
during a bye week is the time to do that.
You installed Desmond Ridder this week. I was very vocal. I'm not a big college football guy. I'm not a tape grinder, but what I watched, Desmond Ridder was my favorite quarterback to watch. He is going to make mistakes, but he is going to get Drake London the football. And I think, Josh, I don't know how many times I can say this in a singular fucking season. I think Cordero Patterson could get involved in the passing game.
And they started to use him more 2 weeks ago.
Exactly.
And, it really bugs me when these players hop on Twitter. I don't give a fuck about your fantasy team, blah, blah, blah. We're just trying to win games. Well, you know how you win games? You get your best player the fucking football.
Yeah.
So if you're not getting the football, you're not producing fantasy points, which then upsets fantasy managers. And I still think it's stupid when, fantasy managers tag players and voice, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Like, please don't ever do that, guys.
Don't do it.
Girls, women, men of all ages, stop. Just stop. You can be frustrated. It's likely not on the players. And I promise you, if you're frustrated with their performance,
so are they.
They're probably frustrated with their performance too. You don't need to throw gas on the fire. Like, stop. Just, But yes, get Cordell Patterson the football.
Well, you 100% said what I was about to say. 5 targets in week 12. They didn't target a single running back in week 13. Why? He is a wide receiver and he is a running back. I don't want to take away from that, but he can catch the football. Let's use him that way. It's so good for fantasy. Josh, we are finally getting to the point. We're going to wrap this show up. But before we do, tell these people about this great Christmas gift that we have for them.
Club Fantasy's Monday Hangxiety is brought to you by Manscaped. Manscaped is the best in below-the-waist grooming. Manscaped offers precision-engineered tools for your family jewels. Manscaped recently launched the Ultimate Men's Hygiene Bundle, which serves as the ultimate Christmas package for the favorite man in your life. The Performance Package, the Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer, Weed Whacker ear and nose hair trimmer, Crop Preserver groin deodorant, Crop Reviver toner, Performance Boxer briefs, and a travel bag to hold all your goodies are all part of this package. It is fantastic. We talked about this a little bit earlier in the show. Manscaped was nice enough to send it to both myself, Ryan, and our Wednesday co-host, Joe Zolo. I can't say anything bad about it, in all honesty. Oh. The trimmer itself is great just because it has a nice little LED light. So when you're in a cave and you need to see, you need a light. And that's what the trimmer does. It's fantastic. Contour is great. It has the changeable settings, the blades. The trimmer itself is waterproof.
Yep.
So it's fantastic. So you can use it in a shower. It's an easy, clean setup. A whole 9 yards. It reduces the nicks and ingrown hairs, which for someone like me, where my hair grows in 80 different directions,
you need that.
I need that because I get ingrown hairs like a motherfucker, and it sucks. I can't stand it. And this is great because it helps reduce the risk of that.
You've been talking the weed whacker up, and I finally got a chance to use that this past weekend. We were getting our passport photo, and I was spending the day in New York City, so I had to clean the mustache up. And I was like, oh my God, I have this thing now to clean the nose hair up. And if you're a mustache grower, nose hair is the bane of your existence if you rock it, because it looks like your mustache goes up. That's not what you want. You want a nice round boy here. And so it was absolutely great. No ingrown hairs. Didn't feel like anything was pulling. And I look clean afterward. It's an absolutely great product. Can't talk about it enough. And Josh, I think what you said, you claimed it perfectly. If they want us to tell you if there's something we don't like about it, I can't think of a single thing I don't like about it, even down to we talk about it as a gift. The packaging thing, this thing comes in. We all texted each other immediately after getting it and said, holy shit, the packaging. And our buddy
presentation is 80% of the battle.
Our buddy Joe works in marketing and was blown away by it. So that's what it's all about here. Like I said, it's a great gift for the man in your life, even the woman in your life. It's going to cover all bases there for you. It's worth looking into. We're going to hook you up with 20% off and free shipping. Use promo code ClubFantasy at manscaped.com. We're going to end the show with my deep waivers as we normally do, and my guys you can cut. We normally try to stick to 10%. Waivers kind of suck right now, but I gave guys that are all available in at least 75% of leagues. James Cook, we've talked about. Go get James Cook. 75% available. No matter your league size, he's likely out there for you. There's a few Buffalo Bills fans who have held on to him. I'm also big on Tyler Huntley. We talked about him. Not a whole lot to say there. 99% available. Yes, to answer your question, I would add Tyler Huntley in a single QB league if I have the bench spot. I love rushing quarterbacks. We saw Justin Fields. I'm not saying Tyler Huntley is that, but he could have a league-changing impact if he can play 2 or 3 games this year. Isaiah Hodgins for the Giants. We spent a little time talking about Darius Slayton. Isaiah Hodgins, I got to see a lot of the Giants game this week because Red Zone hates me apparently and wanted me to watch ties. But Isaiah Hodgins was heavily involved and scored a touchdown. I don't remember what.
I don't have anybody else.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Everybody's dead in New York if you haven't paid attention to what's going on there. Everybody's hurt. Kenny Galladay experiment has failed and absolutely over. Isaiah Hodgins ended the game with 6 targets, just 2 behind Darius Slayton, and scored their only touchdown. And he's been targeted in the red zone lately. Jahan Dotson, 75% available. Another one of these rookies that people gave up on entirely too soon. Obviously, the Washington passing game was pretty well represented this past week. Curtis Samuel, I believe, scored a touchdown. Terry McLaurin had a really good game. But
Jahan tells me Curtis Samuel is going to have like 2.4 points next week.
Exactly. Jahan Dotson heavily involved in that deep role. And the Giants are actually good against wide receivers. So to see them go off in this game, it's really, really good. And I can't believe it took me this long to fit a defense and special teams into this article. But 100%, while I go and grab their schedule real quick, get a hold of the Chargers defense and special teams, because at this point you are playing for the fantasy playoffs. And that is when you're going to look for defense and special teams that have wonderful upcoming schedules. They just dropped 9 points on the Las Vegas Raiders in ESPN's basic scoring after dropping 4 on Arizona. They have Miami next week. Not a terrible matchup, not a great matchup, but they end the season, your 15 through 17 playoff matchups, with the Tennessee Titans, who are a bad offense, the Indianapolis Colts, who are hit or miss, but are relatively a bad offense, Matt Ryan with 3 interceptions last night, and then the Los Angeles Rams, who, as we've pointed out numerous times, have absolutely nobody. Go get the Los Angeles Chargers, available in 82% of fantasy.
Isn't Joey Bosa supposed to be coming back here in the next week or two?
Joey Bosa coming back. They're getting healthy at the right time. Their offense is going to play better. They're eventually going to get Mike Williams back. Everything is trending in the right direction for the Los Angeles Chargers defense. Guys you can drop. Why in the hell is Aaron Rodgers still rostered in 77% of fantasy leagues? Christian Watson has blown up. It has not helped Aaron Rodgers. He's not getting benched, but he's average as can be. I think he was the tight QB 12 or something this week with like 13 fantasy points. I don't know how many times you were going to let your quarterback get you 13 fantasy points before you're going to give up on him. 77% rostered. Cut him.
In 6 point per passing touchdown leagues, Aaron Rodgers is currently QB 11.
Yeah.
I'm actually a little surprised by that in all honesty.
As am I, because he's average and it's boring. James Robinson. Go ahead.
I was going to say, that's just total points. That's not fantasy points per game. You talk about fantasy points per game, he's all the way down to QB 23.
Because their bye is this week, so he has that little bit of an advantage on everybody there. Oh, that's what I was going to throw in on that too. On bye.
But there's also the injured guys ahead, like Carson Wentz is ahead of him in points per game, Jimmy Garoppolo ahead of him, Joe Flacco ahead of him, like Sam Darnold ahead of him. Like, Look, it's not been a good season for Aaron Rodgers, guys.
And if you haven't learned, one of these guys is going to blow up next week because that's what happens to me, a la Cam Akers. It's probably James Robinson, 63% rostered. Go ahead and cut him. The Jets, at the very least, are using a three-headed running back. It seems like they're leaning on Zonovan Knight. Ty Johnson involved. Michael Carter will eventually be back. You can let James Robinson go. Robert Woods, it ain't happening. Traylon Burks hurt, not hurt. You can move on from Robert Woods, 46% rostered. Dawson Knox, I've been fighting the Dawson Knox crowd as long as I've been fighting the Cole Kmet crowd. Cole Kmet gave you his things. Dawson Knox is as touchdown dependent as can be, and I think he scored 4 this year, 77% rostered. Dawson Knox is the guy you should be streaming. And if you're rostering Dawson Knox in 77% of your leagues, you should be streaming tight ends. You should be moving on to the guys who have a great chance to get catches every week and hopefully score a touchdown. Knox isn't doing either right now. And that brings me to the last guy, Mike Gesicki. Mike Gesicki has fallen out. I think he has back-to-back zeros in this Miami offense. They are leaning on their wide receivers. I don't care if Jalen Waddle is hurt. He's going to be fine. Get rid of Mike Gesicki, 47% rostered. He ain't it. These are the types of guys you can't just keep throwing bad tight ends out there. You should be streaming the position. And Josh, we have a pretty good Monday night game. Division hangs in the balance. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers taking on the New Orleans Saints. Tell the people goodbye.
Do we have a really good game?
When these two teams play, it's usually a good game. But let's be clear, primetime games have been absolute trash in the NFL for 70% of their games this year. So you're probably absolutely right.
Yeah, I mean, this whole narrative that, the Saints own Brady, blah, 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 I think you can kind of throw that out the window this year. The Saints just ain't it. And, with them having a bye in week 14, let's all hope that this is the end of the Andy Dalton experiment because they're not winning any games. Like, you literally
Can we get a surprise Jameis start? Can we just do that? Let's shock the world and get
I don't know that we'd get a surprise one, but you know what? The Bears kind of pulled an okey doke on us with the whole we're going to start Peterman. Oh, wait, no, we're going to start Trevor Siemian because, the oblique injury that he tweaked in warmups wasn't as bad as initially thought.
But now he's on IR. I don't know if you saw that.
Oh, yeah. Played the game with a strained oblique. But you're not healthy to play the rest of the season.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's Bears. Jesus Christ.
Weird.
The Saints, they don't have the firepower. Their secondary is playing better. So I'm not thinking that Olave is going to have a great game. And honestly, I need him to score less than 13 PPR points. So do me a solid here, Tampa. I'm hyping you up. Kamara, I'm not worried about it. Rashad White should do okay just from a passing perspective, but they have to get Godwin the football and they have to look Mike Evans' way. That's how they're going to win this game.
Before I jump into my prediction, Josh, QBs are Lamar Jackson and Deshaun Watson, so he feels kind of screwed at quarterback. I'm hoping this is maybe a 1 QB league, but with all these guys available, it's clearly a 1 QB league. So who should he pick up? Mike White, Kirk Cousins, Tom Brady, Jared Goff, Daniel Jones.
Well, Cousins gets the Lions. So I'm kind of, honestly, I think I would lean Kirk Cousins here. Mike White going against the Bills. The one thing I love about Mike White is he's not afraid to sling it at all. But the Bills pass rush, they get after it. And the Jets have some line issues right now. So I definitely would not be feeling that. Daniel Jones, I think he'll be okay against Philly, but I don't think he's going to be anything great this week. Goff, obviously, as I mentioned, they'll play the Vikings. Give me Kirk Cousins here.
Yeah, Cousins would be my thing. I'm a little shocked Cousins is out there in that many leagues. If you want to just play the schedule, Mike White has the second best, I believe, quarterback schedule to end the season, assuming he is able to keep his job. But I'm going to go back on something I've said. If you're relying on Lamar and Deshaun Watson, just go get Tyler Huntley. I think he's going to be really, really good.
I figured that was going to be your answer. Go get Tyler Huntley.
It's my answer to everything. And before I get into my prediction, we have a super deep question.
I like this, actually.
I absolutely love this. So Randy is asking, he only plays, or she, I can't see the picture, I apologize, but in ESPN PPR leagues, they often see references to DFS on Twitter and would like us to explain the difference between DFS and ESPN. And I'm going to let Josh and I talk about this, but I'm going to give you at least 2 names right off the bat. Go follow Austin Amendolia. He is at, Austin
_FFL.
And Kira Wojciechowski, which is Fantasy Kira. Fantasy is spelled with a PH like Philly because she is a big Philadelphia Eagles fan. They are my 2 go-to when it comes to DFS. Ben Cummins is another great one over at Football Guys. They are going to be able to answer DFS questions. I know they're very generous about their DMs. We are going to explain the differences, but we would never claim to be experts. Those are 3 people that we absolutely lean on. Josh, I'm going to let you get talking, and I'm going to drop their @s in the chat here. So go right.
Yeah, and that's Fantasy FF Kira.
Oh, FF Kira. Yep. So that's why I'm going to do
this. Yeah. So the biggest thing. So on ESPN, you're playing what's called season long or redraft, right? So you draft a team at the beginning of the year. And essentially, that's your team. You have the ability to make trades throughout the season. You can do ad drops via waivers. I know ESPN. You can technically play dynasty leagues, but their platform really is not conducive to it because you can't activate the league until like June, I believe, unless ESPN has made those changes. So DFS stands for Daily Fantasy Sports, right? So what's unique about this is that you're not going into this and drafting a team. What you're doing, Randy, is you are drafting a new team literally every single week. You can do tournaments. You can do head-to-head matchups like you would in your redraft or season-long ESPN leagues where you play, whether it's a friend or somebody that invites you to play against them, or you could even just like pick and choose a matchup. But what you're doing is you're putting like a wager on it, right? Like you're entering a contest for $1 or for $2 or $3 or $20 or $25, whatever it may be. And you basically go through and you build out your team based on a salary cap, right? So like DFS, you can play on DraftKings or you can play on FanDuel. And within these, structures and different sites, the salary cap is different per contest. So some contests might be you have a $50,000 cap, which I believe is what it is on FanDuel. And on DraftKings, it's $60,000. And each player has a different, value on their pricing for you to go through and roster them, right? But ultimately what you're doing is you're building out your best team possible within the ranges of that salary cap. And then just like you would in ESPN, everything that they do on the football field, you get points for. And how you would win your matchup in your ESPN league, that's how you would win or lose your, matchup or tournament or whatever it is within DFS on DraftKings or FanDuel.
Yeah, I couldn't explain it any better. Scoring varies between the 2 sites depending on which one you want to choose. Josh, I apologize if you hit on that. FanDuel is half PPR scoring. DraftKings is full PPR, so you're going to be a little bit more comfortable on DraftKings if you want to stick with your very same ESPN scoring. And DraftKings offers bonuses. FanDuel does not, as in like when they hit 300 yards, things along those lines. So that's something you can take a look at there. It's honestly what I would recommend is if you have friends who play DFS, if you happen to know anybody, get on the same site they do because you can do little friendly matchups as well and kind of get the feel.
And it's a good way to learn and experience the platform as well.
It's not quite best ball. So I'm just following up on Randy's next question. It's not quite best ball. You are only building a roster of a starting lineup. There's no bench whatsoever. So you're
Correct.
Literally, you have this X amount of dollars and you're going to read 1,000 different articles from 1,000 different people about roster construction. I'm going to tell you right now, I play DFS. I kind of look at it as my lottery ticket. I'm not an expert. Those names I dropped in the chat, check those guys out. But really, you kind of want to know who you want to go into a week with. And sometimes it'll blow up in your face. I was very high on Nick Chubb this week. So I built a lot of lineups with Nick Chubb as my very first player. Nick Chubb was absorbently expensive because he had a bad matchup and he's a great running back. So I paid a shit ton of money for Nick Chubb, but then had to go really cheap at wide receiver. And those guys just really played poorly this week. So it's finding that balance between paying up for these guys and then finding those cheaper guys, less expensive guys who are going to have the really good week. So it's a puzzle. The best way I can put DFS is it's a puzzle because I go in with guys I really want to get into my lineup and usually it works out decent for me. I'm decent enough to win my money back. This week I won absolutely no money back because my lineups were based around Nick Chubb and his 8 fantasy points and it did not play out well. But those names I dropped in the chat are 3 of the ones that me as a fantasy analyst, when I build my lineups, I go bring their articles up and I read their articles. So some really great names that you'll be able to find there. Josh, anything else to throw in on DFS?
No, and thank you, Jay, for kudosing my great explanation. I'm hardly a DFS connoisseur. I know how to play it. I'm certainly not very great at it because I just, I more so do it for the fun of it. But those 3 people that we mentioned, Austin, Kira, Ben, definitely go follow those DFS players. Kira, she's been with us now for a few years.
Yeah.
We launched our DFS show, DFS and Chill, around her. She currently writes with the 33rd team. Austin is our DFS writer here with Club Fantasy. And as Ryan mentioned, Ben's been doing this now for
I'm going to throw one more name out
years.
there. Our buddies over at Fantasy and Frames, they've been posting their victory laps recently and have been killing it in DFS. So there's so many great names out there. The hardest part is going to be, this is kind of one of my things as someone who I've lived off of weekly or normal fantasy, if you will, season-long fantasy. You're going to read about 40 good players in an article, and you're going to want to start every one of them, and it gets very hard. So what I would say is kind of latch on to a small group of smart people and find the players they have in common, because those are usually the ones that blow up every week. So, Josh, how concerned are we with Ken Walker? We touched on this a little bit. The jammed knee thing, the fact that they're calling.
Well, to be fair, I'm not concerned about his knee because it's his ankle.
Yeah. Oh, it's an ankle. There you go. Yeah, absolutely. So,
no, I mean,
it's not a sprain, which is big.
So I'm not concerned yet. And a lot of that is just because Pete Carroll is telling me that he doesn't consider it serious. Outside of that, I have no knowledge of what this is and what this injury could be, because you just don't see jammed ankles at all. Yep. It's literally the first time I've ever heard of this term.
Yep.
I saw a tweet from Stefania Bell, who's the injury analyst with ESPN. We've had her on our show before. We've had her on with our Women of Fantasy show the last couple of years. She's probably the go-to person that I look at when it comes to injury. And even she said, this is such a unique injury. She doesn't even know how to approach it yet. So I'm not going to pretend to have the right answer.
Stefania Bell doesn't know. The answer is we don't know. Here's the one thing I'll throw out. They're in a playoff race. If they can use him, they're going to use him. They're not going to shut him down for the year or anything like that. So.
Correct. Yeah. Especially because they have a chance to win the NFC West. And Not only that, but also make the playoffs. So if Ken Walker can play, he's going to play.
There you go. And how do we feel about Hollywood Brown going forward? I feel like we've been debating this for a while. He'd have to be the wide receiver too if Waddle is going to miss any time. He led the team in targets in his first game back. So,
yeah, I honestly not that worried about it. I really mean, and the biggest reason why I'm not worried about it is because currently Zach Ertz is on IR.
Exactly.
Because right now the only passing options they have in that offense are DeAndre Hopkins and Hollywood Brown. They will find ways to get those guys the football.
It's the Philadelphia Eagles thing we talked about. It's the Miami Dolphins thing we talked about. You have two good wide receivers, and Mike Gesicki's obviously not hurt, but they don't have a tight end. They're going to feed those wide receivers, and I think they're going to be absolutely fine. Same page there. So, guys, we went way over today. First and foremost, we appreciate every single one of your comments. We have another question. I'll get to that in just a second. But I do want to say we typically wrap the show up around noon. We went way over today. We start at about 11 a.m. Eastern. So if you are enjoying the content, try to join us a little bit earlier, but we're not going to leave anybody out in the world without an answer. Our buddy, motherfucking Dice Dealer, Dynasty contending team, Walker for CMC, half PPR. I am taking the CMC side on a contending team all day long. Josh knows I buy championships immediately. Fuck the future. I'll throw in draft picks if I have to. Give me the CMC side.
Yeah, I was about to say, I mean, if you're getting CMC and all you have to give up is Walker, I'm completely fine with that. If I'm the guy or girl that has CMC, I'd want more than just Walker, in all honesty. But, I think it's a pretty fair trade. I think both are in the conversation for, top 8 dynasty running back going forward. CMC's kind of shown that, he's going to get nicked up because that's just what running backs do. But when he has the ball in his hands, there's probably not a better running back in the NFL. Like it just is that simple. He does it as a receiver, as he did yesterday, 8 for 80 and a touchdown. But, in this offense, there's a lot of room for him to be efficient as a runner, with, only 10, 11 touches.
Yeah. Couldn't agree more. Go get me CMC. I play for championships right now, all day, every day. I trade draft picks for wins. It's how I play Dynasty. So it's going to bite me in the ass eventually.
He's the Les Snead of Dynasty managers.
100%. And we see how it's working for Les Snead right now. Folks, thank you so much for tuning in this week. Thanks for riding with us for 90 minutes. This has been absolutely awesome. When you guys participate, the show is so much better. Make sure you're following Club Fantasy all week long. We do live shows all the damn time. Wednesday night, we're going to be live. Very similar show to this, except we're previewing next week, but we spend most of the show answering your questions. Thursday, we have the best start sit show in the entire world, the Sneaky Flex with the Sneaky Girls, and Kelly or Faith, whoever's going to be with them this week.
But I believe Kelly should be back this week.
Yep. 15 minutes with two of the youngest girls in our industry, and they answer your questions. They hit you with analysis, but they hit you with all the cuteness you could ever take. And then after that, we wrap it up with one of the best IDP shows where we combine forces with Fantasy and Frames. Queen Roxanne hosts that show, and they give you the IDP lowdown on every single question you could have on the defensive side of the football. Saturday, we do another start sit show for you where we spend an hour with absolutely no show sheet. I think I might even be involved this week if you guys actually need me. We're going to be spending an hour answering your questions, getting it out there.
Banger. We have a banger of a start sit show this week because we have the best fucking guest that you can get, both from Fantasy Life, Mr. Jake Trowbridge.
Oh.
And Cooter Doodle herself.
Well, there you go. It sounds like they may not need me because they already got a hot show. So I'll be watching even if I'm not a part of the show. It's one of my favorite things to do on a Saturday morning if I'm available, just watching you guys answer all the questions. It's always the most entertaining show because there's absolutely no script. But we also issue, if you'd rather read your articles, every single day of the week starting on Tuesday, we drop articles, waiver articles, stream of the week articles, matchup articles, wide receiver versus corner matchups, DFS specific articles for those who are asking about DFS. You can follow Club Fantasy on all of the socials at Club Fantasy FFL. And again, we're going to hit you every day of the week. Make sure you hit us up on YouTube, because we give away jerseys when we hit milestones. Basically, you want to be a part of this club, and we want you to be a part of this club. Thank you all for tuning in this week. Have a great Monday. Good luck tonight on all the people we talked about your games, and good luck to those suffering through these injuries this week.